ይሰራል? ሲሆን
የስ እሺ፣ ወደ እኔ ካሜራ ጋር ይዤ እንጀምር።
ሰላም ሰላም የከፍታ ቤተሰቦች እንዴት ናችሁ? ዛሬ እንግዲህ ያለነው የከፍታ ፓርቱ ፖድካስት ኤፒሶዳችን ላይ ነው። ዛሬ I am with Christoph Iwerd, partner of Rockstone Real Estate. In our first episode ያው ፎከስ ያደረግነው ሴልስ ኮንስትራክሽን ከኮሊጌ አዲያም ጋር ሆነን ስለ ዩኒክ ፓርትስ ኦፍ our development in አዲስ አበባ አውርተን ነበረ። ዛሬ ደግሞ we are shifting our focus into the bigger picture of Rockstone as a company itself, how Rockstone started investing in Ethiopia, and then the opportunities and challenges of investing in Ethiopia in broader picture. So Christoph, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you, Lily. Happy to be here.
Yes, I'm very happy to have you here. So let's start by introducing yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your role in Rockstone and as a Rockstone.
Sure. Thank you for having me. Great to be here as always. My name is Christoph Iwerd. I'm a partner at Rockstone. And I've been coming to Ethiopia for quite a few years, probably 15 years or so. First as an investor in private equity, not real estate, but several different industries, from the coffee to manufacturing to services. And I've always been fascinated by Ethiopia from the first time I set foot here. That was it's actually much more, 2007.
Wow.
So that's almost 20 years now, and we funded one of the hotels that came up here on the debt side, and then we went into private equity, and been here in many capacities, and very happy to. Every time I touch down at Bole Airport, it feels like coming home.
Yes. So tell me something. So 20 years. It's a very long time. So what's something that still surprises you when you come to Ethiopia?
Well, a lot of things surprise me because it's such a diverse and such a unique country. I think what I relish after 20 years is, you laugh, when I step out of the airport and I see the blue skies in the morning of Addis, and there used to be a small coffee shop in the terminal, so I used to have my traditional coffee in the terminal and come out. That was wonderful. And yeah, I think it's the energy of the city and the smell and the noises. It's unique. It really is.
What's your favorite Ethiopian food?
A very Ethiopian food. Well, you love its tips. Like any good foreigner.
No Dorovat?
Dorovat. Yes, I didn't want to say Dorovat is too boring, but I do love Dorovat.
So has the test of the tips ever changed since, or it's always the same test?
No, actually, I think I'm learning. I'm learning between very good. Don't ask me what the difference or how is it, but in the beginning I was just overwhelmed with the spices and the flavors. And yes, I do think that I can differentiate now between a very good restaurant and a good restaurant. But to be honest, food's great, and everyone knows how to make the basic dishes, and it's always an experience. And you share, and you sit around a table, and you laugh, and you speak, and it's wonderful.
Yeah. We love eating, sharing a meal, and eating together, because there is always this conversation that goes around when you are having a meal with family, with friends, even with colleagues.
Yeah, 100%.
So, but I believe in Europe, it's not as people are usually like running to work, and the time is very like limited to have a long time of sharing a meal together, except like for holidays and special occasions. And yeah, you know more of that. But in Ethiopia, it's like our daily tradition or daily culture is more always revolving around having families together and sharing those Ethiopian dishes together.
Absolutely. And I'm from Germany originally, so exactly what you say is right. And plus, we all live very busy lives, so there's very little time to sit down and have proper meal. But I live in Spain now, and I must say, Southern Europe, Greece, Italy, Spain, Portugal, they do have the value and the traditions of longer meals, which is also, and more people and family based and so on. So there is quite a difference between the Northern European and the Southern European parts. A bit of everything. And Ethiopia is the best of both worlds.
Yes. As a foreign investor, why Ethiopia? I mean, what convinced you? So you have, let me go back a little bit from my question. So as an investor, you have invested in so many other countries and so many other continents. What makes you select or choose Ethiopia?
Well, there's a couple of things. I think first off, when you look at, if I just take the African continent, if I may, or the sub-Saharan African continent, if you decide to invest, there are many investment opportunities and there are many different countries. One issue that you face is scalability. So I lived in Kenya, we invested quite a bit in Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, and so on. And some of these places are good places to invest in, but they are also limited markets when it comes to scale. So if you invest in Rwanda, let's say, which is very easy for doing business, you very quickly come at a point where you saturate the local market and you need to go beyond the borders. And that's where the problems start, because then you talk to another country, a different currency, different tax structures, different legal structures, and so on. It's very difficult to scale beyond borders. And I think one of the great attractions of Ethiopia, it's the depth of its people, 135 million, I believe it is now. So even though the GDP per capita might be lower, there's a lot of economic activity. So if you want to address a local market, it's no surprise that many investors go to the bigger market, meaning South Africa, Nigeria. Of course, you have the North African markets, but if I just take Sub-Sahara, Ethiopia is right there. So I think that's one main attraction. I think the other main attraction is there is a lot of know-how and a lot of links to international places, especially from Addis, because in Addis you have the embassies, you have the African Union, you have a large diaspora who's coming back. So I think over decades and decades you've built a strong international network. So you find a very interesting market and a very interesting pool of people, which really helps you set up. And then, of course, the economic and the political framework, which, as we all know, when I started in 2007, Ethiopia was on the rise, and I think was doing really well economically. Of course, politically, it wasn't sustainable, so that had to change, which it did. But it was good to see at that time also how the government made a very specific effort to invite foreign direct investments and to facilitate doing business. And they continue to do so with all the headwinds that, of course, emerging markets and this country has experienced over the last years.
Of course. And of course, you invest here when so many others hesitate,
Yeah, and it's not easy. Right? It's not easy to invest, and of course there's a competition. There's competition with local suppliers and local service providers. But I think there's one of the good things is you can see, and I think real estate might be a very good nucleus for that, or a very good example for that. You can see how a market evolves. When we came first to Addis in 2007, in terms of real estate, it was 10, 15 years behind Nairobi, where I lived at the time. It was you could hardly find an apartment, and you would pay a lot of money for very mediocre quality. Why? Because, of course, in German we say a good horse only jumps as high as it has to, which means why would you build something sophisticated and expensive when you don't have to? So a lot of family developers, there weren't many developers at scale, and there weren't any international developers then. Many family developers just built whatever they wanted to build, and because there was no competition and there was no other supply, they could sell and rent it out at very attractive rates. I think and you see in that market how that trajectory, that evolution continued over the 20 years. I mean, if you look at the quality of the buildings, you look at the demand, you had a lot of demand for, if you separate between grade A, B, and C buildings, you had a lot of demand for grade A buildings from business, from diaspora, from international organizations, from embassies, from African Union, and there was no supply, and whatever supply there was sold out immediately. You had a lot of B and C supply, and even that was sold out because there was nothing else. But now what we're seeing is there's more grade A that is coming online, and it's really helping the market. And we're really happy to see that differentiation, different price points, and you see it in the buildings. You see much better engineering, you see much better technology being applied, more sophisticated technology being applied. You see more professional developers. It's a long process, but it's, I think, a very good example of what you see in the Ethiopian industry overall.
Yeah, of course, and you have come a very long way in coming here and for the first time as a foreign investor and studying the market and looking over opportunities and in which kind of type of sector to invest on. Is there like a time during your long journey where you had like, oh, I had it enough, or where you were like, I want to go back? Or was there a time?
No, never. There was never a time. And I think I tell you, Lily, I mean, a big part of it is the people.
Yeah.
I think if I can say that mixture of history, culture, pride, openness is unique, and it's something that is just loves me and other people to come back here and to continue to invest. I think in terms of economics and execution, it is true that one year is better than others, and I think it's very hard to overstate the monumental effort the government has been making over the last years to reform this economy, which has been controlled for a long period of time, and it couldn't go on like this. And at one point there had to be very bold reforms that necessarily cause a lot of economic trouble or economic volatility, and we can see that, and you can see that in the inflation that's been imported. You can see that in the real wages of the middle class and the lower class, and sure, the problems it causes. But this is all part of a journey, and I think it's all going in the right direction. I think what we are seeing now the last 5 years since the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, and of course all the things that happened thereafter, is a result of that. And I think there's a lot of distortion in the market at the moment, which is not really industry related. It's all macroeconomic related, and it's something that we're working through as other industries are working through. But that doesn't mean other countries are better. I mean, we invest in Latin America, I can tell you, and there's problems all over.
Yes.
Then years when it's great and the years that it isn't. It of course doesn't help that now the globalization has been put a little bit on hold, and China has been put under pressure. America is sealing itself off. Europe is trying to find its feet amidst this new world order, or the lack thereof. And of course, as an emerging market, that has been a difficult journey, but not only for Ethiopia, for all emerging markets. But if you believe in the emerging markets, you believe in the future of the high growth regions, if you look at the population, if you look at improved education, in the long term, this is a wonderful value proposition. We need to work through the issues, and I think industry and government are trying to do just that.
I think you explained it very well. And there is one question that I would like to ask you as a foreign investor, which is also, there are going to be as well, there are a lot of foreigners that are attracted to invest in Ethiopia. It can be in projects or developing different infrastructures in Ethiopia as investor. So what do you think are the biggest challenges that foreign investors should expect, or what do you think can be expected? Like, you have explained majority of the points on our past conversation, but I wanted to also tell us, what do you think? There are a lot of challenges, but what do you think are the biggest one for those foreigners who are looking forward to come and invest in Ethiopia?
I think it's execution. I think you look at it, you look at an opportunity, and you see clearly what the opportunity is. The problem is the execution of the same, the realization and the manifestation of that. Meaning, it's very, if you look at very efficient markets, let's take the US as the most efficient market, you have a depth of capital market, you have a depth of human resources, you have very clear legal systems and quick legal systems. It allows you as a company to grow faster because it allows you to access capital, for example, at any point in time of your journey. And it's not only bank debt, you can get private debt, you can get equity, you can get debentures, you can get mezzanine, you can get everything you can think of, from institutions, from private, from all over. And that allows you to because the markets are so deep and efficient, they allow us to price correctly. Price meaning you source debt or equity capital, you have to pay for that.
Yes.
And the payment is usually a reflection of risk reward. And the more efficient this is, the more efficient a company can grow, because it can calculate its cost of capital and it can execute. I think the problem that not only Ethiopia, but a lot of emerging markets have is that processes take a very long time. There's a lot of things that are not efficient that you have to fight against. And the markets aren't very deep. Right? Take, for example, the last couple of years in Ethiopia, because of imported inflation, because of this huge economic reform, the brave economic reforms that have been embarked on, it had a direct impact on the economy because the government had to reduce the supply of money in the system. And it's a little bit like a blood circulation in the body. If something is clogged up and the banks are not allowed to spend more money, there's not enough blood circulation in the body, and the body starves. And I think this is exactly what has been happening in Ethiopia for many reasons. But that leads to difficulties in execution, because you take much longer to source the capital that you require, because there can only be debt capital or equity capital. That's how you fund. And whatever your plans are in the beginning, the plans depend on certain assumptions, and because they always change, you are reliant on access to these sorts of things. So execution, human talent as well. I think Ethiopia has gone a long way in also bringing back people from outside, knowledge transfer. I think we're a good example of that we came here also with a goal of doing knowledge transfer. And I think we've done a good job in the engineering part, in the product part, in bringing technicians and bringing architects and working together with a wonderful team on the ground to build a best-in-class product. Of course, the more people you have that are well-educated, the better it works, the economy works. And again, Ethiopia is not unique in this sense, but of course there's a lot that's still to be done on the education of the masses, because clearly with 135 million people also come a lot of problems. You need to provide for them, you need to give educational access, you need to give job opportunities, right? There's a lot of pressure on the system. And that is something that is also impacting companies. So I would say execution is by far the most challenging. Yeah.
Yes. When you also talk about educating manpower, I can be an example of this Ethiopian local. And when I joined real estate, I was talking about this actually on my first episode of the podcast. So we were discussing with Adiyam over how we came to be in Rockstone. One of the experiences was I have never worked in an international developer in real estate, and Rockstone was the first employer that I joined. So the experience that you get when you are working for an international company and the experience that you get is from a local company is completely different, because you get the exposure of bringing it from, for example, when it comes to Rockstone, bringing the exposure and the experience to us from Europe. So it's a knowledge transfer. So I completely agree on the second point as well. Yes.
100%. And I think there's also a lot of efforts being made to try to attract FDI and try to attract foreign companies into the market. And I think that needs to continue.
Yes, yes. How do you see Addis Ababa overall and when it comes to real estate market evolving over the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, great question, Lily. Thank you. I think the evolution of the real estate market will continue. I pointed out beforehand how the market already evolved from a very basic system of small developers building okay quality into a more differentiated market with grade A, meaning Western international grade qualities B and C. And then there's a market for all of this, right? There's a market for grade A, for grade B, and grade C. It has to be priced. It has to be costed in a separate way. And I think this is the way it has been going. Now, what I also refer to the economic issues and the volatility over the last years because of the enormous economic reforms undertaken have also very much impacted the real estate sector, because the lack of liquidity in the market directly impacts the real estate sector, A, on the ability to source debt capital, but also B, on the ability of buyers to purchase apartments. And there are quite a few still today there, because of the lack of depth of the debt market. There are quite a few developers that necessarily depend fully on pre-sales. So they have no choice but to sell to buyers. I think we're slightly different in that we do this in a more select way. We're not selling at any price, but there are a lot of people who have to. And I think as a result of these two forces, what you've seen is that prices have fallen over the last 2 years. And this is not sustainable for a model that has a differentiated real estate offering. You cannot build a grade A building at international quality, but are not compensated for it on the end price. Nobody will develop a new grade A building if they cannot make money out of it. If they lose money, they will finish their project and then they will stop, which means in the future, we're going to be seeing a lot of, whether or not this is marketed that way, but what we'll be seeing is a lot of new buildings that are effectively B or C in terms of qualities. They're cheap to build so that they can sustain and make money on the very depressed market prices. Now, having said that, I think this is, and because of that, it's not sustainable. I do believe it's a great opportunity for investors right now to come in, because the prices will go back up, because there is a continued demand for grade A buildings in this market, because you have a diaspora who knows what it's like to live in the DMV or California or London or Australia, and they know what good buildings look like. I think people have now also seen, people who live here have seen what is possible, and they will demand this. Embassies, international organizations, AU, etc. These are all still there, and there is a lot of demand for this. So what I'm seeing is that what we're currently, the distortions in the market we're currently seeing are impacting the real estate sector, but they're not fundamental drivers. I think the business model of separating grade A, B, C is not broken, but the liquidity has to go back to the markets so that prices can readjust to levels that are sustainable. And I do see this as the government and private and public sectors work through the reforms. I do see this happening in the next years, which is why I'm saying, well, if you can find a great deal now, it's a great opportunity to buy, because it will not last. I guarantee that.
Yes, yes. So how important will sustainability and green buildings become in the coming years?
That's a more tricky question.
Yes.
And unfortunately, it's a question that has been highly politicized in the world, which we're very sad about, because we think sustainability is the way to go, whether or not it's labeled by someone or a political party one way or another. I think what you're also seeing is that the institutional investors of this world, the big investors, be it the BlackRocks or the whatever big investor you want to name, they don't market sustainability anymore, but they all have these very strict guidelines that they still adhere to. And coming from a European developer, I can tell you, in Europe, it's not a question of whether you build sustainably or not. It's just demanded. It's in Northern Europe demanded by the client. it's in Northern and Southern Europe demanded by investors, by banks. You need to have sustainability, whether that's through a BREEAM or a LEED certification, whether this is through other sustainability matters, and it will continue that. And it will also continue that way because I think production and technology has gone a long way to make these technologies much more affordable, and you can actually, without having to charge a premium, you can include these. And ultimately, what do? They bring down the monthly bill of an investor because you need less energy to heat or cool your apartment or to run your building. It conserves the value of your apartment. So when you resell it in 10 or 20 years, you still have a very good, high quality apartment. So I think the answers are very clear, yes, that sustainability is important. Addis is in a wonderful situation whereby you have the greatest weather in the world. I mean, look at our KEFITA building through the inner courtyards that we have. We can use mechanical ventilation, which is fantastic. It saves a lot of cost to the end consumer. It's much more reliable because you don't have any electric parts that can go bust. You have very little days of heating, very little days of cooling. You have a very strong sunshine and ratio. So our green roof is going to do a lot, and the green facade that we're building, I think, is going to help a lot when it comes to climate protection, to temperature protection in the building. So a clear yes, and I think Addis is in the sweet spot for that.
Yes, I'm sure. Me as well, as a salesperson who's communicating daily with a lot of clients, explaining sustainability, green building, which defines KEFITA majorly, is quite not challenging, but for the first couple of years, yes, it was, because it was like giving knowledge to people to make them understand, because we grew up understanding buildings or developments in real estate are all the brick walls, the window, the aluminium, that's it. And then you move in, you live. But sustainability, having a green building, have so many impacts. So it's also something that is developing in recent years, people understanding what's the benefit to us, which you also explained it now. So we will continue to work hard on it. And the funny part is it even have a lot of costing requirements to become eligible to have a sustainable and a green building. Yes,
100%.
Please tell me about that. Please explain this to my clients and the broader.
I think you're doing a great job. You don't need me to tell it.
Please, let's hear it from you.
Happy to explain. I think there are different certifications, as you know, for office, for residential. Whether it's BREEAM or LEED or EDGE, or there are quite a few. Everyone has its little specialties, but more or less it's all about the same. It's about making the building sustainable. Now, this has to pass through a number of rigorous tests, and it starts not at the end of the building, it starts at the beginning, it starts at the planning. Good sustainability is achieved through good planning and good design. And I think when we came out and we started to design KEFITA, we had exactly that in mind. We knew from day one we wanted to make this a sustainable building, an efficient building that restores and captures the value and maintains the value of an apartment being bought by an investor, and at the same time minimizes operational costs. And with that in mind, we went through different markets in the world to look for architects, look for people who have experience with that. And we felt that Southern Europe actually has not the same climate, but has a few things that we thought would work really well here. We hired and worked with an architect, Urko Sanchez, as you know, who is a Spaniard who has done many projects in East Africa. He has an office here and in Nairobi, as well as an office in Madrid. He's doing a lot of projects in the Middle East and in this part of the world. And with him, we designed a building, for example, that has 2 inner courtyards. There's a quite traditional way of building in Spain. And that had to pass through a lot of tests, a lot of questions from our edge sustainability providers. And ultimately, it led to this great design that we have with the mechanical ventilation that I mentioned. The green facade was another big thing about cooling and heating, maintaining temperatures in a building. I think the green facade does a lot to protect the building from the differences in the climate and to protect the value of the apartment. Light is another one. I think we designed it in a way very well aware of the movement of the sun, which of course here is also easier being very close to the equator. I think we managed very well to have natural light. I think as you can see, part of the attraction of the building having two facades in every apartment. There's not a single apartment that only has one facade. That helps not only with the quality of life and the views, it also helps with sunlight and the need or the lack of need to actually put electricity on and put the lights on during the day, or as you would in London and Frankfurt and many other places. And that together with the whole schematics about cooling and heating the building, using rainwater drip irrigation for the green facade, having a green roof, I could go on and on, but having a gazillion things that are necessary for these certifications. And some of this was part already of the qualities that we were building, because as you know, we are adhering to international standards, mainly the European standard, to say we of course adhere to local standards and what's required by law, but we also want to, as a grade A building, adhere to international standards, whether this is fire safety, security, but also energy and efficiency. And so all of these together, I think, became a package that was then thoroughly analyzed by our team and by the certification provider. And as you know, we won a great rectification of what we have done. We won best sustainable building, not only in Ethiopia, but all of Africa in that year. And I think that speaks volumes to the work we're doing here and to the aim of bringing Addis and Ethiopia to the forefront, leapfrogging, learning from markets that have already gone through these stages in decades and decades, and leapfrogging an industry into a different quality. And I think we're doing a good job.
Of course. Let's talk about KEFITA.
Say again?
Let's talk about KEFITA.
Very good.
What was the vision behind the project when it first started?
The vision behind the project was to help renew and help develop the real estate market in Ethiopia, in Addis, to address a need for international quality design at not too high prices, and to make accessible that type of quality in a market that has the know-how about it and where there's demand for it. We are a residential investor, we're an office investor, we're a hotel investor. And when we came here, we felt that the residential piece is the most obvious opportunity. Hotels were also coming up, but we felt the biggest need in the market was that. And we wanted to be part of that evolution of the real estate market. We talked a lot to our friends and partners, Cerberus, who had been doing through a dedicated private equity fund, the first Ethiopia-focused private equity fund, and in the market also since 2008 or 9, I believe it was, or even before then. And they very much supported our idea. And I think together we defined a value proposition that we believe would be well taken up by investors.
What makes KEFITA fundamentally different from other developments in Addis Ababa?
The residential market is a huge market, and Addis Ababa is a big city, and you have 135 million people. So I think there's space for an entire ecosystem of residential buildings, and there are very different products. Even if you again separate A, B, and C grade buildings, you have more integrated whole developments that are mixed use designs, which may be malls and office and resi, and that have a very different feel to it, that have a very different vibe to it, and they're fundamentally a different product. You have small apartments that are mainly used for work or for consultants, for flexible living in, let's say, downtown Bole, very close to offices, very close to where a lot of business is happening. Again, might be similar qualities, a very different product. What we wanted, we saw Addis Ababa, we saw a bustling city that was growing. And what we wanted to create was an oasis in a part of town where you could step into a quieter world. You could have all the amenities, you could relax, you could do family events, you could work, you could have meetings, you could invite people, and you could live as fundamentally a residential building, to close your doors, to have a wonderful view of Addis, and to be in your oasis. And I think that is something that to this day I believe is unique, because we're seeing good buildings coming up, but it's an entire ecosystem, and there's a lot of space. We welcome what you would call competition. We welcome that, because I think what it does is it helps educate the market. It helps educate people as to what is possible, and that you do not have to pay grade A prices for grade C buildings. And we're seeing 2, 3, 4 other developments coming up. And like I said, we welcome that. And at the moment, we're not seeing any product that is similar to ours from a positioning perspective, from a design perspective, from a quality also of execution.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers to you.
You had a long flight, so
Great to be back. I look forward to
Welcome back
the
to
team event tonight.
Yes.
The team dinner.
we're looking forward to for so many conversation on your short days. So outside of work, what do you enjoy doing to disconnect, to recharge? I am asking you these questions
Mhm.
because I know how a hardworking person you are, and you involved in a lot of projects. You are overlooking Europe, you are overlooking other countries, and including Africa, and now focusing also for the last 5 years managing overall the project KEFITA.
Yes.
So what do you do to disconnect? I know everything that's involving the professional
Yeah.
side, but let's talk about the other side.
That's a good question, and it's very important, right? Because we all live very intense lives, and it's very important to disconnect. It's not always easy, right? You tend to bring your work home mentally, and you tend to sleep on it, and you tend to always be connected. So what helps me a lot, I must say, is 2 things. First is sports. Sports helps me to disconnect. I try to do sports 4 or 5 times a week if I can, even if it's just quick, just to get it out. I prefer sports in the evening after work if I can.
Run.
I run, I row, I ride a bike, I swim. So yeah, all sorts. I like team sports, but now I'm old and my knees are bad, so I had to give up on some of these on basketball and on others. I had to football I had to cut short. Then I like watching sports. I used to like watching the World Cup until Germany crashed out.
Yes.
Horrifically.
I cried with my husband together,
Yeah.
even though I was from Portugal, and I cried already.
Yeah, I'm still in denial, I must say. But fair enough. And no, but it's great because I love watching sports too. There's always something. I watched the NBA finals. I'm a big Knicks fan. So after 57 years, I think it was, or 53, older than I am. It's the first time. It was a great series. Tour de France now, which is also fantastic. So that keeps my mind off things and helps me relax. And the second thing is my family, of course, right? Family and friends, and spending quality time with them. That's all I need.
If you weren't in real estate today, what career, or I know you are not only focusing real estate, but you are an investor. And if you were in this sector or in this profession, what kind of career would you have chosen?
That's a good question. I think we're in a very interesting phase in life and in the world and societies. I think there's a lot happening. There's a lot of innovation. I think there's a lot of uncertainties around this, artificial intelligence and so on. But at the same time, we're making more progress than we ever had before. I'm a guy who likes the future more than the past. I think if I look back in history, there are very few times in history I would prefer to today. I think today we have the best quality of life. If you see how the average person lives, how we live, you compare it to our parents or grandparents or great-grandparents, I think it's incredible the amount of quality of life that we have. And this will continue. And I think the innovation that we're currently seeing in the world is going to be, with lots of back and forth and lots of uncertainties, is a great trajectory. So I'm very excited, and I think I would spend more time on that.
Thank you very much for your time, Chris. It's a pleasure having you here. You're not only part of our team now, you're also part of our podcast, and I'm sure we will have you again and for our next episode or the next episode or topics that we will be focusing on. And I'm very happy to have you here, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Lily. It's been a great pleasure.
You're welcome.
Great job. Thank you.
You're welcome.